morning and welcome to Good News on Entertainment. I'm Carly Boyette. Tonight's a fun show as we're going to be meeting people of all walks of life, but they all share a similar journey to share love and hope on the unexpected path God has now placed them on. The first company I want to tell you about is called Just Do Good Entertainment. It launched in January of 2024, and their mission is to produce original content, whether that be TV shows, films, or books that inspires, uplifts, and makes a difference. And that leads us to a really fun show called Divine Renovation, a home makeover show with a spiritual twist. It's hosted by Eric Estrada, and season 2 is just about to release on multiple platforms. Before I talk with the co-founders of Just Do Good Entertainment, let's take a look at season 2 of Divine Renovation.
I'm not sure that I realized it at the time, but I was a big bag of broken pieces.
Nice to meet you. Lou Picard.
Lou Picard.
Dale.
Dale. I'm Eric.
Then you get the doors to open up here, and you find a family. I have a family here.
Where we go when our time is up here depends on how much we have loved.
I was hit by a drunk driver. It broke my 4th, 5th, and 6th cervical vertebrae, leaving me as a C6 quadriplegic.
Being in the military, you always say you would die for your brother or you would never leave somebody behind. Christian's my soul, my being, he's that. I'll never leave this guy behind.
Go team! Monty, let's start with you. How do you best describe what this company is? The good news is there are a lot of people in the game. I think there's a lot of different production companies that see the need, right, and are trying to meet the demand. So what is it that your team is trying to do there? How do you best explain it?
Well, first of all, thanks for having us. And we love any name of a show that has good in it. No pun intended on our good. We think all good is good. No, Just Do Good. We like to say it's kind of a byproduct of us meeting together in unusual circumstances, whether it's on a Ukraine war when we filmed our first feature together, or it's during a pandemic. It was these extraordinary circumstances that made us want to start doing good and start really reaching out and putting our basically money where our mouth is. But in show business, that's either there or here, putting our heart. And as we're leading with our heart, we're starting to gain a follow. And the following is not just audiences that most people in show business cater to. It's an awareness. It's a movement. It's a time where other productions, they're about getting in and getting out. And that's a hard job in itself. But when we ask the community, local houses of worship, nonprofits to join us, then it becomes a crusade. And that's what I would describe what Just Do Good is, and the byproducts of like Divine Renovation and the Thursday Night Club we've acquired so far. Valerie, would you say that's maybe it in a nutshell?
Yeah, absolutely. And you referenced the Ukraine war, and that's for me a pivotal moment, because when we were shooting this movie, The Thursday Night Club, that was not our company, but we were hired to produce, and I directed the film. The war had broken out, and I would get up every morning and go to set, really fun, beautiful freedom that we have, and think about what was going on thousands of miles away. And there was a disconnect. So I kept thinking, when you break up in the morning, you see all this very nasty news and horrible things. How do we move forward? So the only way for me personally that made sense is I'm going to be in this business to do something that matters and to make a difference in other people's lives. And through doing that, we created compelling entertainment. It hits the heart. It makes people feel good. We're doing something for others. It's a good combination. Why not continue it? So 6 months ago, Monty and I created our company around that principle of creating content while doing good for others and other facilities, bringing businesses together that want to help us. And, people talk about corporate America, and yes, there's a lot of problems, but we've found that businesses want to not only make money, but they want to do something that is important and can make a difference in people's lives. So they've joined us as we're doing these initiatives.
And this first one, this Divine Renovations, I mean, that's what caught my eye about what you guys are doing. We've all been in the business now for quite some time. There's really nothing like this. Explain, we saw a little bit there from the trailer, but this is just so unusual. And I thought, where has this show been? I love this idea. So I don't know who wants to take this one on, but tell me more about
Well,
this.
we all love these home makeover shows, and we all fantasize about what if they could help us out, whether they could help our neighbor out or whatever. And we are a small production, and we said some things are bigger than some of these big projects. So, as Valerie says, small fixes are big miracles. We tried to go in this a budget friendly conscious show, but at the same time we knew we couldn't do it alone, and that's where the community stepped up. And instead of making these big projects, it was installing handrails, it was installing something that people take for granted, but we captured the innocence, we captured the humility, we captured everything during a hurricane, I might add. We had one day each to make these projects happen, but we filmed it in my hometown. Valerie and another producer came down, and it was on a prayer. It really was, but it happened. And we are so thankful for the city of Wilmington and all the businesses and the nonprofits. The police department came out. They even, and this is what we really believe on what we do. When we left, there's still relationships formed with the businesses, the nonprofits. Around Thanksgiving last year, the police department came to some of the families and gave them food and make them a part of their family. And so it's just a show of giving without the extreme excess. Would you say, Val?
Yeah, and that was season one. That was our pilot, but we've completed, and coming out on September 19th will be season two, which was shot in the New England area in Connecticut. And keeping along with that plan, we identified individuals or facilities that needed something that would really make a difference. So, for example, we met this lovely guy, Joe, who is a paraplegic. He was in a terrible accident at the age of 21. He's now in his 40s. He's getting married, and they had a house with no paved pathway from the backyard to his garage. So in his wheelchair, he'd come down his ramp, get into the mud, and more often than not get stuck in the mud. And sometimes it was dangerous. He'd fall over. So he's like, okay, what can we do? We brought in a paving company, Carly, that took care of it. They put down the asphalt, they smoothed it out, and they did this gratis. They paved the way. And so now we see him coming down the paved path to the driveway, and he easily gets into his vehicle. That is a huge change in his life. That's just one example. So we're not knocking down walls and putting up roofs necessarily. It's just those small things that can make such a huge difference in people's lives. That's what we want to do. And then we provide a spiritual uplift. At the end of every episode, we do something fun or meaningful for each individual that they would love. So in this case, we threw them a surprise shower. They didn't know. They didn't even know we were decorating the front of their house. We had musicians, cake, gifts. She wanted to get married in cowboy boots. I got white, beautiful, embellished cowboy boots for the bride, and he had a hat, and music and cake. It was so beautiful and romantic and lovely. It really makes you feel good when you end the episode. There's an uplift, and that's our goal.
And it makes it seem doable. That I think sometimes when you do see those huge grand things, you thought, well, I can never do that.
Right.
But you know what? If we are encouraged and inspired by something we see on there that maybe a church community can do
That's
together,
right.
or something, in bite-sized pieces, I love that. So hopefully the goal is for people to watch it and go, hey, you know what? You may be able to do seasons all over the country.
You're absolutely right. And with the houses of worship, one of the things in season 2 that we got to do. We got to work closely. And during the filming, Carly, we actually was able to have a fundraiser for one of the officers that we're doing and raised almost $5,000. We couldn't have done that without the church. So we included that in this season of the help that we got from them. And then this also church, they brought their children to help plant the flowers. We had a lemonade stand. We had veterans giving a 21 gun salute to a homeless shelter. It's everything that we grew up with watching, all wrapped in one. And then obviously we're so excited that our host Eric Estrada delivers it with grace and a smile. It's just the Americana that we believe that everybody has in them.
All right. So again, how can people watch season 2? And then you got to tell us again, there's got to be hope for more after that, because I just see so much that could be continued.
Well, September 19th is the big day for us. It's when it comes out on streamers, including Amazon, Roku, and Tubi. More to come. And we are thrilled that we have this clearance at this time. So we're going to be making a big splash and telling everybody about it. Our social media is very active. We are so happy and honored to be on your program, Carly. Thank you for having us. So yeah, it's spreading the word. It's viral. It's encouraging others to do the small things that you can to make somebody feel like they matter. It's humanity. That's what we need.
Being in the military, you always say you would die for your brother or you would never leave somebody behind. Christian's my soul, my being. He's that. I'll never leave this guy behind.
Go team! And to find out more about Just Do Good Entertainment, go to their website, justdogoodent.com. Okay, now to our next guest, who is a mom living in Hollywood with a passion for helping other moms find their purpose. Tara Lawn, or Tinseltown Mom, as she is known, has a popular podcast called Momatize Your Passion. She's also a life coach and blogger. Let's hear more about her incredible story and journey. Tell people a little bit about your backstory and how you've been podcasting, by the way, I think a little bit longer than what most people have.
Yeah, 5 years, which is kind of a record in the podcasting industry.
Yeah.
So I feel like, we should have coffee and go over all of this. But anywho, I'm in California. I think you're in Florida.
I know the coast, makes it a little hard, but that's okay. That's why we're getting to know each other now, and then inviting viewers and listeners to join along.
Yes. So I started pursuing acting when I was very young, but I decided to go to the traditional route, go to college. I got an undergrad degree in broadcasting. So I was like, okay, if acting doesn't work out, I have something to fall back on. So after graduating, I realized, after a couple of major job interviews, that acting was really my passion. So I felt like God wanted me to move to Hollywood, AKA Tinseltown, to pursue this career. And this was like in my early 20s. So I grew up, I had a very sheltered background. So when I told my family this news, in particular, my mother, she was not on board with this. She was like, okay, you're moving to Hollywood to be an actress. I mean, it just sounded so far-fetched. I grew up, I'm in the San Francisco Bay Area. It's 370 miles away. But I really felt like this is what God wanted me to do. So there were 6 things that I asked God for. I was like, Lord, if this is really you, I need you to open up certain doors for me. So 1 was I needed a place to stay. 2 was I needed a talent agent, someone who would represent my career. 3, I needed a job. 4, I wanted a multicultural church. Like, I was very specific. I wanted a multicultural church because that's how I grew up. And then the last thing was I wanted to make a lot of friends. Oh, and then also my mom was not really on board with this because, again, I grew up very sheltered. So I was like, Lord, if this is really from you, can you please change her heart? So
that's a big ask from God. Good for you. Go big or go home.
Yes, I was very specific. So literally, God opened up all the doors. My pastor at the time worked it out where I could stay in a Korean Christian dorm for as long as I needed to until I got on my feet. Someone referred me to a great church. I drove to LA and back in one day and got a job in a talent agent. And the next thing was my mom's heart needed to change. But as all of this was unfolding, I noticed that she was actually speaking to people about my choice and happy about it. Like almost bragging, like, yeah, my daughter's moving to LA to be an actress. Like I overhear her on the phone. She was actually happy about it. So somehow God was, through all of this, changing her heart with this. So when it was time for me to move, and my family threw me a going away party, I asked her, what changed her heart. And she said that God gave her a vision that I was in Los Angeles and there was angels surrounding me. And she knew that was God saying he was going to protect me. So she was at peace with it. So I moved to LA. I pursued acting for about 5-6 years. But just through the course of pursuing it, that passion kind of waned just through various reasons.
God works too. You got to be ready for that.
Yeah, there was so many things that I was asked to audition for and do that. It just didn't align with my values. So the passion actually evolved into a writing passion. And I was like, you know what, God, I can write about the things that I want to be in. So that passion waned. So I was like, okay, how am I going to pursue a writing career? I was pursuing acting for so long. So at my church, there was a writing group called Write On, a small group that I joined. And in that group, I met another young dreamer who had moved from Alabama to LA to pursue a filmmaking career.
And he's now your husband.
Now, yes, very successful in the industry. I met my husband. We're both two young dreamers pursuing our dreams. And through the course of all of this, I went back to school, USC, to get a master's in professional writing. So after I graduated, I'm like, okay, what am I going to do with a professional writing degree? Like, what do you do with a professional writing degree? So I was doing some freelance writing at the time for some, major publications and things like that. And then I had the idea to start my own platform, Tinseltown Mom, because at the time, I became a mother. My husband came up with the name. So I started my platform, Tinseltown Mom. First, it's just a blog where I was interviewing celebrity moms just about the road to their success. And then over time, it evolved. I started a podcast 5 years ago, and I started a coaching practice where, I'm coaching moms on how to pursue their passions. And I have a book coming out later this summer. It just helps moms to tap into their God-led passions and actually make money from it. So it's of the same name as my podcast, which is Monetize Your Passion.
So what is the goal of all these things that you're now doing that God has now led you? Again, it's not the path necessarily that you thought you were going to be on when you first started the journey, but that's what God does as well. I think we need to be open to that, on where it's going to shift and change and where God's alignment, and his will for your life goes. So how are you trying to help kind of serve other moms and people in the industry and kind of where God has placed you?
Yeah. So I really want to encourage moms and help them, because there's a lot of moms who have gifts inside of them and they're just not using them because they think that this is a season where it's supposed to lie dormant for whatever reason. But I really want to show that if we're pursuing those God-led passions or things that God put in us, we'll not only find personal fulfillment, but we're helping so many people that we're called to serve. Like, we could literally change lives if we pursue the things that God has called us to pursue. And I can't do that for someone else because there's a gift inside of them that God wants them to use to help and serve others. So if I can just show moms the importance of this and they start actually doing it and their kids see them doing it, then their kids will also pursue their God-led passions and they will be world changers as well. So that's really my goal.
I just love that you were encouraging people, to embrace that. It's okay. And hey, here's some help. You might need some training. You might need some help on kind of how to put the plans in motion.
Yeah. And then also, I interview a lot of moms who've gone through trauma and suffering and heartache. And these moms have gone through these things, but they have gotten to the other side and they're now helping other people who've gone through what they've been through. So even things that we've gone through in life, sometimes we don't realize that the things that we've gone through, okay, now that we've picked ourselves up, we've gotten help and healing. Now let's help someone else who's going through that. So that's also part of all this, big picture, is showing that all the things that we're going through, they're not in vain. They're things that can be used to help other people.
For more on her podcast or coaching opportunities, just go to her website, tinseltownmom.com. Okay, now to our last guest of the evening. Steve Emerson has spent many years in Hollywood using his musical gift as a tenor to work on more than 175 feature films. His voice can be heard on movies like The Patriot, Hunt for Red October, Indiana Jones, and so many more. But a few years ago, he was offered an opportunity to use his talents in Washington, D.C. And now that has led to a ministry where he is not only trying to be light and salt in the world of Hollywood, but now in the halls of the U.S. Capitol, too. Explain what you were doing, what you're still doing in Hollywood, because obviously you still see that you are being called in that field as well. But then you have this whole other side of the aisle, we'll say, pun intended, that you're doing in DC. But let's start entertainment wise and how you found yourself there.
Well, Carly, my wife and I moved to California, to Los Angeles in 1978, and one thing led to another, and doors opened for me to be in the studios. I'm in town, what's called a session singer. I sing for recording sessions for movies and commercials and television shows and video games. Over the years, I've sung for over 175 feature films. Things like Aladdin, Beauty and the Beast, Pocahontas, Hunt for Red October, Home Alone 1 and 2, Sister Act, Men in Black, La La Land. The list kind of goes on. But that was a part of my career. I served on a church staff. But so I had a foot in two aisles, across two aisles there as I was working in a church situation. But I also found myself in the studios here in Hollywood.
So then how do you make the transition from that, which how fun and incredible, to now you find yourself in DC praying, worshiping, sending encouraging notes to leaders, again, from both sides of the aisle, which I love. How did you make that transition?
Oh, Carly. Well, in 1988, I continued to be working in the studios, but I left my church position and I started singing around the country in churches, with orchestras, nonprofits, corporate events. And so that was one area of expansion. It's like God enlarged my territory, if you recognize the prayer of Jabez. But never, when I learned about the prayer of Jabez, I never could have imagined that I would have wound up in Washington, D.C. And it was 10 years ago. It was in 2014. A friend of mine said, Steve, we're going to reinitiate worship services in the Capitol. There were worship services in the United States Capitol from 1800 to 1869 on Sunday mornings. They'd be held in Statuary Hall in the Capitol. Thomas Jefferson would ride his horse from the White House down to the Capitol for these services. So my friend reached out to me and said, we're going to restart these services. Would you come and sing at the first one in July 30th of 2014? He said, I don't have any money to pay you, nothing for travel, nothing for hotel. And it sounded like a great deal to me. And so I went and I led worship in that first service back in the Capitol. And after that night, he said, would you come back twice a month? So since 2014, I fly from Los Angeles to Washington, D.C. to lead in this worship service in the Capitol. But in addition to that, while I'm there, before I go, I write notes, handwritten notes, 200 each trip. And when I'm there, I deliver those to congressional offices and engage with members of Congress and staff.
What has the response been on both sides of the aisle? I mean, I think certainly in today's political climate, people are very frustrated, and you don't hear that this is going on behind closed doors. Sometimes the fruit isn't there. I can understand why maybe they, are not seeing that. But what is the hope that you see?
Well, I do see hope. I'll say this, Carly. While I try to tell this story, I try not to make it about me. it's not about me, and it's not about me getting a selfie with some important person in Washington, D.C. That's not what this is about. It's really a ministry of encouragement. What I call it the Word on the Hill. And people can learn more at thewordonthehill.org. They can read testimonials, they can see videos from members of Congress. The response from both sides of the aisle is overwhelmingly, it's very positive. Uh, Carly, normally when I see someone, a member of Congress or a staff member, I'll just say, "What do you need God to do for you today?" And after they go, "What?" I'll repeat, "What do you need God to do for you today?" And people, it's really shocking how open and vulnerable people are. One time, I'm in the elevator alone with this member of Congress, and I asked her the question, and she just said immediately, "I need prayer for my adult son." Another member said, "Our son just committed suicide. My wife and I need our joy back." Another member readily just confides in me that he has a son who's a methamphetamine addict and who is now incarcerated. So people are hungry for encouragement. Capitol Hill is a dark place. It's a difficult place. It's a place where power and money and prestige kind of rules. So when someone comes in just saying, "What do you need God to do for you today?" Most people are very, very open for any kind of encouragement.
Well, thank you for everything that you're doing. Again, I just love hearing these stories when God places all these different puzzle pieces together and it just aligns. If you're looking at them separately, it's going, "What is this?" But when you take a bigger look back, you can see what God has been doing and how he's been orchestrating everything in this path that you're on. And I'm excited to see where it continues to go for you. Thank you for putting in all that hard work, those long hours. And again, just keep us posted on how we can help, Steve.
Carly, I really appreciate it. I appreciate your encouragement and appreciate the prayers of those who follow and listen to you and watch you. Pray for our nation. Pray that believers will stand firm. And just as in Gandalf in the movie The Lord of the Rings, he stands and he says, "You shall not pass." And that we as believers will say to evil, "You shall not pass."
For more on Steve's ministries, just go to thewordonthehill.com. Oh, so many great guests tonight. I hope you enjoyed the show. I'm Carly Boyette, and I look forward to seeing you next week right here on your Christian Television Network.